Thank you all for being here. As I said, I introduced myself before. My name is Maria Jones. I graduated from the School of Communications in 1988, and I was so lucky to have Dean Keene as he was the Dean of Residence Life at the time. And I'm a proud member of the Capstone. So I wanted to introduce the guest. But I want to start with, before I get into the bios, I just want to, next slide, please. I just want to, I have a personal recollection to share about Dean Keene. Let's see, 1984, I had just come from California. My mother and I had just come from California, and we made it over to the A building. And anybody who knows, the A building is infamous for just giving you a very gruff welcome. So after we leave the A building, she says, well, let's go on over to housing because you haven't been assigned housing. Or no, you've been assigned housing, but there's an issue with it. So we go to the housing residential of residence life, and which was at the time, I believe it was under the quad, right? Do you all remember that? When it was under the quad? Well, so we get there, and my mom asked for the head of housing, and Dean Keene comes out, and she says, you all have assigned my daughter. And I'm like, oh, Lord. I put my head down because my mother does not hold any punches back. A little short lady from West Oakland, right? She says, you all have assigned my daughter housing at the Woodner, which is off campus on 16th Street. I don't think there's any shuttle. I'm not sure how that's going to work. It's not going to work. And he's warm, he's nice. He says, don't worry, Miss Berry, we're gonna get your daughter situated. Just give me a minute to figure it out, and we're gonna work it out. And I think we left that day. And I said, Ma, he was nice. And she's like, we'll see, whatever. And I remember we got a call back in, or he called us back in like maybe the next day. And he says, listen, I was able to find something in the quad. I was able to find something. We're going to assign your daughter to Wheatley Hall. And that was just my recollection of Dean Keene. He was very warm. He made us feel at ease because we were tense all the way from California. And he was able to accommodate me, a little 18-year-old girl from California, with housing. So that is how I always remember Dean Keene, with a big smile on his face. And that warmth, I just always remember that. I'm so grateful for that. And although I am just meeting Mama Ife, I know that they are kindred spirits, and I can feel that warmth from her as well. So with that, I'm going to get into the bio. Okay, Carol Ife Keene, contributing author of Clandestine. Okay, so Carol Ife Keene, she was born in Knoxville, Tennessee, raised in Camden, New Jersey. Within 48 hours of arriving on Howard University campus as a freshman, she meets William Damani Keene. It was instant, they fall in love. And since that time, they've enjoyed 54 years of marital bliss with her soulmate. And after 54 years of a happy marriage, not only do they still love each other, but they especially like each other. Their motto is never stop honeymooning. Okay. So Ife receives her Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology from Howard University in 1966. After receiving her Bachelor's of Arts degree, she makes an extreme career change to the information technology field, and this is a profession dominated by men in the 70s. She excels and graduates number 2 in her class from the computer programming training program that she enrolls in. Ife is hired by the Space Division of General Electric, and she works 20 plus years in the information systems field and makes tremendous professional achievements, including serving as Director of Business Development at a minority-owned information systems firm. as well as serving as senior vice president of a woman-run company. Ife is the author of 2 published books, but proclaims that Clandestine is one of her most exciting writing journeys to date. She continues to write and enjoys her beautiful surroundings in the Republic of Panama, where she and Damani have resided for 15 plus years. Ife and Damani are the proud parents of 3 grown children, Khalid, Koili, and Malik. And they are also delighted to be grandparents and great-grandparents as well. Welcome, welcome, Carol Ife Keene, right? William Damani Keene, author of Clandestine. Damani spent his early years in Harlem, New York, before he and his parents moved to St. Albans, Queens. He was active in civil rights in New York. Then he went on to Howard University, where he met and fell in love with Carol Kilgore, his second date at Howard. They married senior year and have been together ever since that day. Damani obtained his Bachelor of Arts from Howard in 1966 as well. And then he went on to serve as an officer in the U.S. Air Force, where he taught a Black history course at a federal penitentiary. He became a community organizer in Brooklyn, New York. And at the time, Damani and Ife were at Howard University. There was no African American studies. Remember, they graduated in 66. The protests of 68, that happened 2 years later, and that's when the students demanded African American studies. So Damani took it upon himself to obtain knowledge of Black folks. And so he took several classes at the Africana Studies and Research Center under the tutelage of Dr. James Turner, all while leading protests against police violence and the apartheid system of South Africa. Damani completed graduate studies at Cornell University. Damani worked for Howard University for 32 years in several positions, including serving as Dean of Residence Life for 14 years. He and Ife worked directly with Kwame Ture for over a decade to support the African liberation movement. And in 2014, Damani was elected to the Howard University Board of Trustees as an alumni trustee. He served in this role until 2017. Okay, let's give a hand to the newly elected member of the North American Parliament of the State of the African Diaspora. Let's give a hand, yes, that's big, okay? And this is a constituent part of the African Union. When Damani retired from Howard in 2004, he conducted extensive family heritage research, which led him to write a historical novel inspired by the life of his enslaved great-grandmother, Mariah. This novel is entitled Clandestine, The Times and Secret Life of Mariah Otey Reddick by William Damani Keene, contributing author Carol Ife Keene. They self-published their novel in September of 2019. It is a family saga of resistance and resilience. And it is available on their website, clandestinelife.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we present to you the world premiere of the brand new movie trailer of Clandestine, never seen before until this moment. And this is produced by Khalid Keene. Hold on to your hats, sit in your seats, and enjoy. Outstanding. Khalid Keene. That is the world premiere of the trailer to Clandestine. And as exciting as that trailer is, the book, if you have not read it, I just have to tell you, it is just as exciting. Okay. I was up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning reading, skipping ahead because I'm about 300 pages in, but it's a page turner. It really is. And everybody has got to get one tonight. You just do. So thank you very much. And let us bring up the authors of this book, this novel, William Damani Keene and Carol Ife Keene. Let's talk about it. Okay. And then in a little while, we will give folks, we're going to open it up for folks to ask questions. Okay. So, Damani, discuss this fantastic book. First of all, is this your first book? And
for sure.
This is your first book?
And my last.
Okay, right, because it is a masterpiece. It is your magnum opus. It's huge. And what was the inspiration for this book? It's a personal story about your great-grandmother, Mariah Otey Reddick, who was an enslaved African. You learn from it. You make discoveries about your family lineage. But why a book? A book is a huge undertaking. And then you did it in historical fiction. So tell us about your inspiration for the book.
We didn't start out to write a book. I was doing family research, and several of the people that are on this call have done similar. And I just uncovered things that had been published about Mariah. I was shocked and amazed that this enslaved Black woman, her name was all over the place. And it took me a long time to find it because I was doing all the traditional research. And one night I got frustrated. I said, let me Google her name. I Googled Mariah Reddick. Thank goodness her name wasn't Jane Johnson. And all kinds of information came up. And it was just absolutely amazing. That's a long story. I won't tell you about it now. But we decided then we needed to check it out. We traveled to Franklin, Tennessee. We've never been. This is my mom's hometown. I'm really embarrassed and ashamed that I'd never been to my mom's hometown. We went to Toussaint Louverture Cemetery. Toussaint Louverture Cemetery, y'all, in Franklin, Tennessee. That cemetery was founded in 1884 on January 1st, 40 Black men got together, almost certainly including my great-grandfather Bowman, and named that cemetery after Toussaint Louverture, 80 years after the Haitian Revolution, 1804. And we stood there, we poured libation at the graves of my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and it was moving, it was amazing. And shortly thereafter, during that trip to Franklin, I realized that Mariah's story had to be told. And my wife, Ife, was kind enough and generous enough to join me in the journey. And so we wrote it together.
Yeah, it's a story that Damani felt that he wanted to tell, but that both of us feel and felt that just had to be told. Clandestine to us is not just our story, it's all of our stories. And we started out telling a story, but Clandestine became a mission for us because what we wanted to do is tell a story that a universal fact-based story that uplifts African culture. That is so very, very important to us. We also want to present truthful facts about our history. Our history has been so distorted. So we wanted to do something to tell the truth about us and the grandness of our people.
I was going to say, that was kind of my question. Like, what do you hope to achieve with this book? Who do you want to reach? What is your grand idea of what would happen if all Black people read this book?
I think, and truthfully say, we've always wanted to change the world. And we realize one little book is not going to do that. But we hope that it will contribute to a deeper understanding by a lot of people, hopefully reach a lot of people, to appreciate at a much deeper level the struggles that our ancestors endured, to give us inspiration and hope for the struggles that we still endure, and to inspire other people to research their families. We really hope people will do that. Maria, let me take just one moment. I saw that one particular person is on the call. I hope he's still on. His name is Victor Ezeanata. He's from Nigeria, and he was a really key person in our research about the Igbo people and customs, and helped us to some authenticity. I hope he's still on.
He is on. He is on.
Great. It's been a labor of love.
So one thing that we noticed is in reading the book, the characters' names are so unique. Can you, because there was Malcolm, there was Rupert, there was Othello. How did you derive these character names? I mean, are some of the names based in fact and some are fiction, or how did you come up with the names?
Yeah, very good question. We had an idea a while back, 2018, and we extended an invitation to people in our network to help us honor their ancestors. We called it Honor Thy Ancestors.
And we wanted to involve potential readers in the writing of the book.
Right. We knew we couldn't tell their ancestors' story, but we hoped that we could keep the memory of their ancestor alive by naming a character in the book, a fictional character in the book after their ancestor. So there's a Howard alum by the name of, a lot of you would know by the name of Manati Jenkins. And his family are from the Sea Islands in South Carolina. And his grandfather's name was Esau. And so just as an example, Manati gave us permission to use his grandfather's name, Esau, as the character, as one of the characters in the book. So in this way, we had people whose ancestors were Union soldiers, who were from the Caribbean, from the continent. And of course, we included our own ancestors. Ife's mom, Johnny May, we used as a name of a character. My uncle, my father's brother, Othello, used his name of a character. So, and of course, we named the character after Kwame Ture. And so it was really something to read the little blurbs that people sent us about their ancestors, the struggles that they had overcome, and so on. So we're glad that we were able to do that, and quite inspiring to us.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was going to say another thing we hope to achieve is something we call linking generations. And that's something where we hope that we can get the young and the elderly to begin to sit down and communicate, and also gain and internalize knowledge about the history of our people. It's so important that our youth become involved in our community.
Yeah.
So we're just hoping that we want to stress the significance of their presence, and invite them and encourage them to be a part of.
Yeah, I think when this can definitely appeal to youth. I mean, the whole African fort scene and how the folks are coming up from the Sea Islands and they're going down to Florida to form their
No
own
spoilers,
community.
Maria. No spoilers.
Oh, no spoilers. Oops, I'm sorry. Yes. So, I mean, but kids would, I mean, youth would love that because it's adventure and it's exciting. And it's true. These things actually occurred. I had no idea about what you all call the African fort.
African fort. Let me ask you a question. Raise your hand if you have ever heard of African fort in Apalachicola, Florida. James is a researcher. I know.
Well, I cheated. I have an aunt. I cheated. I have an aunt an uncle that reside there. So
okay.
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 All right. I can't see everybody.
Somebody else raised
heard of
their
it as
hand
well.
too. Oh, Danon has raised his hand. He's heard of it.
Oh, Danon. All right.
I think Vivian raised her hand too, right?
Vivian? Okay. Yeah. So, but the point is that most of us have never heard of African fort, and I looked it up and I said, "Oh my gosh, this existed. This happened." Y'all have to read the book to find out. One more question, and then we can allow you to read a little bit about it. Read from the prologue. How this story is so layered and it spans generations, time, and geography. Like when we mentioned Rupert and his journey out of the Sea Islands to Florida, and then Mariah goes from Mississippi to Louisiana to Tennessee. You've taken these characters and you've dropped them in live historical events and situations. Can you describe your writing process? Like, how did you do this research? Was Ife, were you researching while Damani was writing, or how did it happen?
I know, just the opposite.
Okay.
Yeah, I was writing while he was researching.
Okay.
I'm a writer from a technical background, did a lot of technical writing, including proposals, memos, newsletters, company policies, and procedures. So that type of work was so very detailed, concise, and you had to meet deadlines, specifications. So I did have a little challenge with the way Damani was writing.
Okay.
His idea was to just write with no deadlines. That kind of drove me up a wall because of my background.
Right.
But he would write, not in an organized fashion, not knowing whether or not what he was writing, where it was going in the book.
True.
So
it's all true.
So that was kind of
my wife very diplomatically called my writing style
very unconventional.
Yeah,
just to say chaotic and undirected. But let me tell you about writing. Just one point about it. At one point, I had what they call writer's block.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't write anything, and I realized that the problem was I didn't know how the book ended. I didn't have an ending. I didn't know where it was going.
Okay. And
one day or night or dream, or I don't remember exactly how it came to me, the ending came to me, and then from then on, it was good.
Wow.
So, but it was very. I was writing and researching and researching and rewriting. I would find new things that just had to go in. That's why the book is so long.
Wow.
Yeah, but once I realized the way he liked to write in his style, we just proceeded from there with me writing my style, him writing his style, but always keeping in mind our common mission.
Okay.
Which was to write a book that uplifts African culture.
What's remarkable is we would get to certain points and we'd be discussing something and neither one of us would remember which one of us had written a particular part.
Oh, wow.
That was pretty wild.
Wow.
You can look it up, Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you all may make a great creative writing team. because like I said, I mean, the historical element and the fictional elements marry so well. It's just amazing. So would you all read some of the prologue for us at this time so we can hear a little bit?
We will. We will.
Thank you.
We just, let me just say this. We have to thank all of the members of the Capstone group, the core members, especially Maria, especially. We just really thank you all for this opportunity. Thank you so very much.
Oh, well, we thank you.
We really
should be thanking you all.
Nah.
really appreciate your support.
So this is what we're going to share with you is a slightly abbreviated version of the prologue.
Okay.
The Lash or the Noose, early 1863, Montgomery, Alabama. I'm going to have you hanged.
Chilled to the marrow, Mariah, as an enslaved African, knew the major threat was far from an idle one.
The ghastly war of rebellion raged into its second year. Union forces occupied northern Alabama and had stalemated the Confederate onslaught at Shiloh. Facing each other across battlements, blood brothers wore uniforms of different colors and fought and died under different battle flags.
Raw grief saddened their hearts, and vengeance was encrusted on mourning suits. The fragile freedom hopes of enslaved Africans soared on once broken wings.
You conniving wench.
The stench of ammonia and cauterized wounds and the screams of maimed rebels filled Montgomery's military hospital. Major Noah Reese caught Mariah passing a slip of paper to suspected Union sympathizers. Rick and Jane Apple, intensely devout people, were book and Bible merchants. Under the guise of tending to the spiritual needs of the wounded, they risked their lives to provide sensitive intelligence to the Union.
Thousands of Confederate deserters combed the mountainous Alabama-Tennessee border, foraging for food. Everyday conversations were peppered with sensationalized news of Africans who escaped by the dozens to the Union Army lines under the cloak of darkness. Goddamn spies, spat Major Reese at the stunned trio.
In the preceding months, the inseparable couple befriended Mariah in the wards and became a conduit for details she picked up from rebel soldiers and officers. One man, delirious with fever, kept speaking of the lack of ammunition in the 12th Tennessee Infantry. Mariah scribbled her note as soon as she could. It was that scrap of paper the major snatched from Mr. Apple's hand. Major Reese puzzled over the letters.
Caught dead to rights, a surprising calm overcame Mariah. Her breathing was steady, but she worried about incriminating evidence. After Lincoln's proclamation, all Africans were suspect, including those perceived to be faithful. Mariah was considered loyal enough to work in Confederate President Jefferson Davis's home.
After all, she had been enslaved and trusted for 15 years by the McGavics. At age 10, she was a human wedding gift to Carrie McGavick from her parents. In an emotional outburst last year, Carrie had begged her husband, "John, you must not send Mariah with the others. I know she's valuable, but I must have her with me."
Carrie, dear, lower your voice. Colonel Clithwell is arranging a military escort to take our Africans south for safekeeping. Some to Louisiana and a few to Montgomery. Now that's the end of it. Less than a year later, Mariah was in Montgomery, serving in the household of President Davis's mother-in-law and assisting at the hospital. Now she found herself proclaiming her innocence to the cavalry officer.
"Sir, I don't understand what you be accusing me of, but sir, you got me all wrong. She stood tall and hoped her racing heart did not betray her. Did I just tell this white man he was mistaken? He fainted as if to slap down her impudence.
Mariah pushed beyond the limits of acceptable Negro behavior. Her denial came in flat, grim monotone.
I'm hoping to earn my place, sir, in my Lord's heavenly mansions. That'll come about only if I tell the truth. I'm learning the word from this here lady. I showed her what I take from the good book. That's a fact, sir. She lied, making her large eyes look sincere and innocent. You can ask Colonel McGavick of Franklin, Tennessee himself if he trusts me.
She knew from experience religion was a useful deflection, and Mariah, at 24 years old, had been tricking white slavers a long time. You take me for a fool? Major Reese demanded. Reese's body odors and foul smells seeping through his bandages made for an oppressive brew. I saw what I saw, Negra. I've been watching you for 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Mariah was terrified.
During that time, Mariah talked with the Unionists at least 4 times. If the major had accosted her during the last of those meetings, he would have discovered Mariah had battle orders from headquarters. She had slipped the papers from a military doctor's black bag. Mariah wasn't sure how long Major Reese had been on the wards. She noted the soldiers' pain, their faces, their mutilated bodies, but Mariah did not keep track of when the men in gray came or when they went, whether alive down the front steps or out the back under a sheet and bound for the boneyard.
Her mind was racing. Could he have overheard me convincing that dying sergeant to clear his conscience? He was begging for forgiveness, scared that he was going to hell. His platoon ignored his orders and killed wounded prisoners from the 22nd Wisconsin after the skirmishes at Brentwood, Tennessee. He kept moaning, told him to stop shooting. I swear I told him. Mariah gave those details to Jane Apple last Wednesday.
The major now realized his bluff would not provoke a confession, so he took to intimidation. Nigger, what the Sam hell? Don't you dare look me in my eyes. Furious and insulted, he grabbed her by her long, thick hair and thundered, as God is my judge, I'll have your black skin peeled back.
Too late, Mariah realized that she had locked eyes with him. Her now downcast eyes concealed both her defiance and fear. She'd give him that much, but he'd learned nothing from her.
Who's your master? He sputtered. Reese felt the large wound on his thigh oozing, and the pounding in his head was making his right eye twitch behind the bandages.
My mistress is Miss Carrie McGavick, but I'm working now for Miss Margaret Howell, sir. She sent me to help here at the hospital. His accent told her the major was not from Alabama, and Mariah thought he might not recognize the name of President Davis's mother-in-law.
Mariah had not expected these exact circumstances, but Mariah had considered what to say and do if anyone discovered her subversive acts. Without a plausible explanation, she faced a bloody lash or a deadly noose.
Sir, I was just giving birth to my 8th child 7 weeks ago and wouldn't be doing nothing to endanger myself. And sir, I needs to be here with my children because my husband just died a month ago. Pulling on any sympathetic feelings the Confederate might have, she was also telling the plain, verifiable truth.
Miss Carey had violated law and custom by teaching Mariah to read, but Mariah learned little writing, which supported her alibi and credibility. As a result, the major's only evidence was nearly illegible numbers. Well, Negro, what the hell, excuse me, Mrs. Apple. His brow furrowed with skepticism and anger. What is this 76? Rather than denoting the casualties in a soldier's unit in a recent battle, Mariah offered another explanation.
I tried, sir, to write down the number of a verse in, I think it was Exodus, so the missus could read it to me again. Exodus is my favorite. That's the part. Don't you know when the Jews leave out from the Pharaoh?
You ain't got to tell me. I read my Bible. Slapping Mariah hard, Reese yelled, "You think you know something I don't? Are you mocking me, you goddamn nigger?"
Frustrated and skeptical, the major directed his attention and vitriol to the seeded apples and menaced over them.
You're gonna tell me what I wanna know.
Mariah was thankful that the Rican officer left her alone for a moment. She lifted her head, took in a deep breath of fresh air, and pondered the strength of her Igbo grandmother, Ngozi.
It was that name, Ngozi, that Mariah's mother secretly gave her when she was a girl. In such moments of danger, she derived strength from her memories of Nana Ngozi, and too, the recollections of her father, Othello.
Mariah drew courage from her father's tales about his father's saga as a free man battling for his freedom with the Seminoles in the Floridas.
The death and destruction her grandfather and her papa had witnessed made her troubles seem minor by comparison. If they could survive those calamities, she could find the strength to persevere with her own travails. Her father's closely guarded stories of the liberty he enjoyed in liberty in Florida as a child inspired Mariah. The daring of grandfather Rupert, escaping the slavers and fighting for freedom 50 years ago at African Fort with General Garcon, gave her hope that her children, if not herself, would escape bondage one day.
At this moment, however, Mariah's greatest fear was that the apples had no similar legacy to draw on to resist Major Reese's verbal assaults.
By God, you're going to tell me what I want to know.
Wow. Wow, that was awesome. And so if Mariah can courageously and bravely not only survive, but triumph in slavery during enslavement, then we should be able to draw from that courage during these times to survive and thrive during these times. But I see as we must call upon the ancestors. We must call upon our traditional ways. We must do this collectively. It cannot be just individual mainstream behavior. So I get it. I totally get it.
So just let me say that the prologue ends there, and then chapter 1 begins in 1801 with her grandfather Rupert, who's a Gullah, escaping from South Carolina to seek self-determination and fight for freedom with the Maroons, the Seminoles in Spanish Florida.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're going to open up the floor at this point. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that was a sneak peek at Clandestine, The Times and the Secret Life of Mariah Otey Reddick. You got to get the book, though, people. You got to get the book. So let's open up the floor for questions.
Good evening to the Keens. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And Dean Keene, it's a pleasure to see you in person. We corresponded for quite some time.
Yes.
My question is, what tips or advice would you give to someone looking to possibly, like myself, regarding that transition from writing something that's straight history based to turning something into historical fiction? Were there any challenges that you guys found in trying to take, a story based on real people, but make it fiction, but still keep it based in reality? And what was the difference in like that research and writing methodology based?
Wow. James, that's such a great question. My brother-in-law, who's published the book as well, told me years ago, he said, man, you could never write fiction because I'm so literal and so, this is what happened, and I have to give him credit, named Gary, because he gave us two really pivotal ideas for the book that took the literal researched truth and turned it on its head based on what might have happened. And so I think it depends on the writer. You have to let your imagination come into play. I lived in the 1800s. I mean, I was there, and I tried, and I know Ife did the same. Tried to put myself now. If I was in that situation, what would I do? But that's not all now, because I'm a certain kind of way. What would another person who was very different from me do? So, for example, someone very, very different from us, we have a blackmailer. We call him a colored blackmailer in the book, who blackmails Mariah. So, you know, that's not something I would do, wouldn't even cross my mind, but that's the kind of thing that can make a story compelling and interesting. How is Mariah and her second husband, my great-grandfather Bolin, and Porter, you still there? And Porter's great-grandfather Bolin, how are they going to react to that? What are they going to do? There he is. So, James, that's the thing I would say. Let your imagination come in, place yourself in the minds and the behavior of your characters.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm not going to make this, I won't belabor this, but I want to thank you, Damani and Ife, for this sharing your wonderful story. And of course, the part that I just, before I even got the book, was just the idea of your including, allowing others to share in the ancestry, through the honor of thy ancestors. I sat for probably half a day and just mulled over that, how wonderful that was. And I just want to know what's next. I think, Bill, you started off saying that there is no next, but I think that there has to be a sequel or a play or a movie. There has to be something. Just give yourself a chance to breathe, but I think you have to do it.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm laughing because we told Maria that we weren't going to talk about this, but I can't lie. On the call is a Hollywood producer.
Oh.
And we are talking with him about making a film.
Wow.
Yeah,
And,
Wow.
but
I
look,
can totally see it.
But wait, y'all. Don't wait to see the movie. Please get the book.
That's right. That's right. We're going to put the website in the chat.
Yeah. So that's what we're working on now. Well, yeah, we're working on that primarily.
Great. Asha.
Oh,
Okay.
that's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I do a shout out to some of the other authors I see? I see Ida Jones on here. I see Charlene James. James has already spoken.
Is Aisha Banks?
Aisha, John's already mentioned her. But I can't see everybody, but there's some other really great writers on here dealing with some wonderful subjects. Vivian Peters. Her book is called Sexpert. There's some really good people who are writing, and let's support one another.
Yes, good evening. Thanks for hosting this Mecca Minded. I really enjoy it. And I want to celebrate both the Keenes. I love it. And I think hearing the both of you read it in tandem would make for a good audiobook as a segue to something that would be more dramatic, because your personality and your passion come through. I am trying to plow through it, and we'll have my review in time, but it is very engrossing, and it is written in it's written in the way in which you see it. I mean, it's not just a book, it actually reads like a film. So, and there's photographs in it, and you substantiated all the scholarship. So it's done in true advice and tradition, that's sound scholarship, but I really enjoyed it. I know you poured your years into this, so thank you for sharing. And I also do celebrate with the other sister who talked about how you invited the rest of us to consider our own stories, because all of our stories have matter and weight to them. So thank you.
Absolutely. And let me say to you, Ida, thank you. Ida has done some amazing work, you all, on historical figures. So please look her books up. Just appeared on the screen, our editor. You won't believe there's another
Ife.
two Ifes in Panama, but Ife Grady is our editor. There she is, and was great with working with us. And I mean, when you have an editor who
was of the same mindset.
yeah, embraces the mission. Hey, James, that's another thing. Be sure you get a great editor. So Ife, thank you so much.
Do you have a question or a comment for the Keene?
Well, I just want to say that I am so very proud of Damani and Ife. I mean, oh my gracious, this book is just fascinating. And, you know, so many of us have similar or backgrounds in terms of our ancestors and what they went through. And so being able to document everything and do the reviews, I mean, and the research, I think is just phenomenal. And Damani and Ife, I tell you, I'm just so very proud of you and all that you all have accomplished. And I would say that I'm glad that you're dealing with a Hollywood director, because this certainly can be made into a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a question for you, Damani and Ife. I'm writing a memoir, and I can't remember. I've done some research, and I can't remember everything. So would it be considered a fictional memoir, or what would you suggest?
Right. Yeah.
Depends on what you want to do. If it's a straight memoir, then that's very little fiction involved with that. That's straight memoir.
Straight memoir. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And there are books and websites about how to write memoirs.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that. Ife did a little bit of that with her first book, Cancer to Spirit.
I remember.
A little bit of memoir in that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's that you know, the first person storytelling is, you know, really part of our people's tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And so keep it alive.
Okay. All right. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
We can hear.
Okay, hi. First and foremost, thank you. I just finished the book, and I just want to tell anybody who hasn't read it, get into it. It's really important. And I hope you don't mind, I raised my hand because I really would like to make a comment, if that's okay.
Sure.
Not so much a question, but really to congratulate you both and to thank you for this really important work. And what I wanted to comment on is something that one of you said in the very beginning about one of your goals being to link generations, which I agree is so vital for everybody. And I just wanted to share, because we're living through this pandemic and we're all seeing each other now on the little funny boxes on our computer screens, that I wanted to share something that I thought was ingenious that someone shared with me at the beginning when schools first closed, which is that, and all these kids are home and all these parents are, you know, tearing their hair out trying to work full time from home and homeschool their kids somehow in between. So what we did was we volunteered for our own grandchildren to do a video like this, you know, an hour every day, where we would take on one segment of the homeschooling piece. So, you know, with our 7-year-old granddaughter, we're doing the math, and with our 5-year-old grandson, we're just, you know, doing whatever. But we have an hour a day that's scheduled just the way a school day would be scheduled, that they come on their computer. And I'm sharing this because there may be other grandparents or other relatives, and in addition to schooling, during this pandemic, when people are sort of stuck inside, if you know what I mean, this is a really nice way. We think of it at, so many people I know can't see their grandchildren and they're just heartbroken. We can't travel, etc. And this kind of thing, it could be I mean, even if you didn't want to offer an hour a day, maybe once a week or something. But I just wanted to really remind people who are trying to connect generations that the pandemic does, in a funny way, provide an opportunity, because everybody's there. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's got that time now. And so just to encourage others to reach out within their families, even to share family history. Now is a good time to do that. But mainly, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vivian. And Zanae, you're going to be our last question and or comment.
Okay. Yes, comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Comment. Okay.
Sure.
Well, first, I would like to thank you all for this very nice and lovely meeting. And thank, of course, Mr. William Damani for he invited me to attend this meeting. I am Howard University graduate, class of 1985. I graduated from chemistry department, and my years at Howard University were among really the happiest year in my life. I'm so grateful to Howard University for so many things, for the learning, the generosity, the beautiful atmosphere that I had during these years. And till now, I still remember Howard U. And for many years, I wanted to communicate with the people from Howard University. I've been so busy with so many things, but I decided that I have to do something. And I tried to search, for alumni, and finally I put some words, and Dr. Damani really, he invited me to come here. So I'm so happy to be among all of you, and I'm so grateful to Howard University. That's all one thing. Right now I am retired. I got my PhD in biochemistry from Georgetown University, by the way, and I work in teaching, and I am a writer, by the way. I like writing, okay, like you too. I really enjoy it. I write science simplification books for children and youth. And I read both in English and Arabic, by the way. I love English language, okay. And thanks to Howard University, really, I learned good English when I was in freshman year and sophomore. Good teachers I had, and all the good atmosphere. And I hope I can come sometime and visit. The first thing I will do when I come to the States is go to Howard University, really, because I miss it so much. Thank you so much for this beautiful meeting. You really made my day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zanae. And we're going to have to move on. We will ask for people, if you have a question or comment, please leave it in the chat, and we will be sure to get those questions to Damani and Ife. Okay, so this book is available. Clandestine, The Times and Secret Life of Mariah, Otey Reddick. It is available in ebook now, and we put it in the chat. You can go right now to clandestine-life.com/product/clandestine by Black Support HU alumni. All right. Ife and Damani are pleased to donate 10% of sales from this session to the Capstone Group. So that you all would be doing us a great favor by purchasing a book this evening. And they're relatively inexpensive. So it's an ebook format, so you can read it at your leisure. You don't have to wait on Amazon to deliver. We want to give a rousing thank you and round of applause to our guests this evening, William Damani Keene and Carol Ife Keene. Thank you all so much for sharing your love, your loving masterpiece with us.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say we are delighted to be the guests of the Capstone Group this evening. And we thank you, Maria, and the wonderful Capstone Core Group for welcoming us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so
You're
much.
very, very welcome. And
Let
thank
me
you to
ask-
Mariah and Bolin and all the ancestors.
Yeah, that's right. Let me say, ask, when you order your book, in the comment section, as you're doing the order, just put Capstone, so that we'll know that the order came from this discussion group. And I wanted to thank Zainab again for joining us. She's in Cairo, so it's very late in the middle of the night there. And also Victor is in Lagos, and it's very late there as well. So we really appreciate you staying up for us. Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you very much.
That's
Thank you.
really a testament to who you are as people. It really is. To get so many people from so many different places around the world.